Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump just had one of the worst legal days of his entire life, which is saying something. And it comes amidst a set of accelerating threats from local, state, and federal law enforcement. So last night, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, as we reported, issued a unanimous per curiam ruling against the ex-president, overruling a previous decision, widely criticized by a Trump-appointed district judge, saying that the Department of Justice can resume using the 100 classified documents seized from Trump's home in Florida in their investigation into his handling of the sensitive materials. The DOJ has said that this inquiry is related to possible obstruction of justice and Espionage Act violations. Also yesterday, New York Attorney General announced a $250 million civil lawsuit against Donald Trump, his company, members of his family, including 3 of his adult children, accusing them of committing, in her words, a staggering amount of fraud. If that suit is successful, it would bar the Trump Organization from doing business in New York State. All of that comes just weeks after we learned the DOJ issued 40 subpoenas to all sorts of people in Trump's orbit in connection with their investigation into the attempted coup on January 6th. The DOJ has also seized the phones of 2 top advisors to the ex-president, which is interesting. Then there's the fact that Donald Trump's own lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is a target of a criminal investigation into election interference in Fulton County, Georgia. The district attorney down in Georgia, in that county there, has sent target letters to several other Trump allies in Georgia, and the grand jury in the case has issued several subpoenas. Then just this afternoon, the special master in that classified documents case ordered Trump's lawyers to state in a court filing whether they believe FBI agents lied about documents seized from Mar-a-Lago or claimed to have taken items that were not actually in Trump's possession. And all that follows the ex-president's claims on social media and in TV interviews that the FBI planted evidence when they searched his home. Now, this is a 76-year-old man who has essentially bullied and bluffed his way out of jams his whole life. He's a con man, and he's going to con. And apparently no lawyer can get him to shut up, because amidst all of this, Donald Trump went on national television where he sounded like a raving lunatic, totally dissociated from reality, but crucially, fundamentally admitted to the main facts of the crime that the DOJ alleges he may have committed.
If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it, because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it. And there doesn't have to be a process. There can be a process, but there doesn't have to be. You're the president. You make that decision. So when you send it, it's declassified. I declassified everything. Now, I declassified things, and we were having a lot of problems with NARA. You know, NARA is a radical left group of people running that thing. And when you send documents over there, I would say there's a very good chance that a lot of those documents will never be seen again.
Okay, again, amidst how addled and strange that is, Donald Trump admits the basic facts at issue when he says, and I quote, "You're sending it to Mar-a-Lago. When you send it, it's declassified." He's telling the world that he didn't ever actually declassified, but that he did order classified documents to be removed from the White House and shipped down to his retirement home in Florida. In other words, he willfully and intentionally retained classified government records and national security secrets. He takes that even further when he admits that he didn't want to send the documents to the National Archives, or NARA, because he did not think he would get them back. Yeah, right. That's how it works. Of course they wouldn't give them back. They're not yours. They get to keep them. Now, as if that was not wild enough, the ex-president then proceeded to go so far off the rails that his longtime supporter, confidant, colleague, if you will, Fox News host Sean Hannity, had to come in and intervene to just try to wrench him back to some semblance of reality.
There's also a lot of speculation because of what they did, the severity of the FBI coming and raiding Mar-a-Lago. Were they looking for the Hillary Clinton emails that were deleted, but they are around someplace? Were they looking for the spying on Trump's?
You had it.
No, they may be saying, they may have thought that it was in there.
Okay.
And a lot of people said the only thing that would give the kind of severity that they showed by actually coming in and raiding with many, many people is the Hillary Clinton deal, the Russia stuff, or, I mean, there are a number of things. The spying on Trump's campaign. So they spied on my campaign. So why did they come in and do that? Especially since we were having such great conversations, Sean.
Oh, poor Sean. Do you see that part? So Trump's theory of the case here apparently is that the FBI raided his house in Mar-a-Lago because they were looking for some physical remnants of the Hillary Clinton emails that were in Mar-a-Lago. And then Hannity has to be like, wait, the FBI was searching for Hillary's emails? You didn't have them. And you can hear Hannity almost saying, like, are you having an aneurysm or am I? But again, amidst the delusion, the spinning, the tap dancing, Trump is admitting to the core of the potential crime. And here's the other thing, and this is crucial. As the 11th Circuit pointed out in its ruling yesterday, the point he is making, right, as he himself incriminates himself, the point he's making about classification is irrelevant. Quote, the declassification argument is a red herring because declassifying an official document would not change its content or render it personal. So even if we assume that plaintiff did classify some or all the documents, that would not explain why he has a personal interest in them. They're not his either way. The documents do not even have to be declassified for Trump to make his defensive argument. The point is that he took the material. It didn't belong to him, classified or not, although clearly it was classified. He lied about it multiple times, resisted giving it back. That's the essence of the criminal offense he's being investigated for, and he just admitted to all of it on national television.